The Silent Watchers. The galaxy had always been a place of noise. Ships hummed through hyperspace, communications bounced between star systems, and civilizations rose and fell with predictable patterns. For 12,000 years, the Verith Empire had watched it all from the shadows. They were the silent judges, the unseen peacekeepers who maintained order across 1,000 worlds. Their technology was beyond anything else in known space. The Verith had perfected something called the null field, a form of technology that didn't just hide their ships from sensors or bend light around them. It erased them from existence itself. When a Verith vessel activated its null field, reality simply forgot it was there. Gravity waves passed through without noticing. Quantum particles rearranged themselves as if nothing occupied that space. Even artificial intelligence systems, with their perfect mathematical calculations, would scan right past a Verith ship and report empty vacuum. Every species in the Galactic Assembly knew the Verith existed, but no one had ever tracked them, followed them, or caught them by surprise. They appeared when they wanted to appear, delivered their judgments, and vanished again into the void. This was simply how things worked. The assembly station hung in neutral space, a massive wheel of metal and light that rotated slowly against the backdrop of the Andera Nebula. Representatives from 40 different species had gathered here for what should have been a routine event. The Kryn were being formally inducted into the assembly. They were an insectoid race, cautious and methodical, who had spent 3 centuries proving they could maintain peaceful relations with their neighbors. The ceremony was meant to be a celebration, a reminder that the galaxy could work together despite its differences. Security Chief Marcus Stone stood in the observation gallery, trying not to look bored. He was a broad-shouldered man in his late 40s, with lines around his eyes that came from years of scanning crowds for threats. His dark hair was starting to gray at the temples, and he wore the plain gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic security force. Humans had been part of the assembly for only 60 years, barely a moment in galactic terms. They were still considered newcomers, interesting but not particularly important. Marcus watched the various alien dignitaries milling about. The Solthari floated in their environmental suits, their gaseous bodies shifting colors with their emotions. The Pren stood in small groups, their 4 arms gesturing as they spoke in their clicking language. The reptilian Voss kept to themselves near the far wall, their vertical pupils tracking everyone who moved. It was standard diplomatic theater, the kind of event Marcus had attended dozens of times before. His job was simple. Make sure nothing disrupted the ceremony. Make sure everyone stayed safe. Make sure the humans didn't embarrass themselves in front of species who had been navigating space politics for millennia. He checked his tablet for the 100th time. The Verith were scheduled to arrive in 15 minutes. They would decloak their ships in a choreographed display, 3 vessels materializing from nowhere in perfect formation. It was meant to impress, to remind everyone that the Verith were always watching, always present, even when you couldn't see them. Marcus had seen the display twice before, and he had to admit it was effective. He looked out at the stars, letting his eyes drift across the empty space beyond the station. The Andera Nebula glowed soft purple in the distance, and tiny points of light marked distant ships moving through the shipping lanes. Everything looked normal. Everything looked peaceful. Then something bothered him. He couldn't quite identify what it was at first. It was like feeling eyes on the back of your neck in an empty room, or sensing movement in your peripheral vision that vanished when you turned to look. His gaze kept returning to a specific patch of space about 30 degrees to the left of the nebula. There was nothing there. His tablet confirmed it. The station's sensors showed empty space. But something about that emptiness felt wrong. Marcus had grown up in the forests of northern Canada, in a region where bears and wolves still roamed. His father had been a ranger, and he'd taught Marcus to pay attention to the things most people missed. The way birds went silent when a predator approached. The unnatural stillness that meant something dangerous was hiding nearby. The quality of shadows that didn't quite match the angle of the sun. He stared at that patch of empty space, and his mind kept insisting that something was there. The darkness was too dark, too uniform, too perfect. It was like someone had cut a piece out of reality and replaced it with a photograph of nothing. Marcus stepped closer to the viewport, his eyes narrowing. He could almost see movement, or rather, he could see the stars not moving the way they should. Tiny irregularities in the light, as if something invisible was passing in front of distant suns. His instincts screamed at him, the same instincts that had kept him alive through 3 combat deployments and a dozen dangerous situations. Ambassador Chen, a dignified woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, noticed him staring. She moved to his side, following his gaze. "Is something wrong, Chief Stone?" "I'm not sure," Marcus said slowly. "Do you see anything unusual out there?" "Where?" He pointed at the patch of space that bothered him. "There. About 20 degrees left of that bright cluster." Ambassador Chen looked. Her diplomatic training kept her face neutral, but Marcus saw her eyes widen slightly. "I see empty space." "Yeah," Marcus said. "But doesn't it feel wrong to you?" "The emptiness. It's too empty." She stared for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I see what you mean. It's like a blind spot. My eyes keep sliding off it." "Exactly," Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "I think they're already here." "That's impossible," Ambassador Chen said, but her voice carried uncertainty. "The Verith aren't due for another 14 minutes. They always arrive exactly on schedule." "Unless they wanted to arrive early and watch us without being seen," Marcus replied. The Verith delegation coordinator, a tall Solthari named Ven, drifted over to them. Its colors shifted to concerned blue. "Is there a problem, Ambassador?" Marcus pointed again. 3 ships. 1 large, 2 smaller. The big one is positioned at the center, probably in some kind of ceremonial formation. They've been there for at least 5 minutes. Every species in the observation gallery turned to look at the human security chief. Some appeared confused, others concerned, a few looked at him with what might have been pity. The humans were new to space, after all. Perhaps the stress of such an important event was affecting them. Ven's colors flickered to amber skepticism. "Chief Stone, our sensors detect nothing at those coordinates. Perhaps you are experiencing visual fatigue." "I know what I'm seeing," Marcus said quietly. He pulled up the tactical display on his tablet, marking the exact coordinates. "If I'm wrong, we'll know in 14 minutes. If I'm right, the Verith have been watching us this whole time." The gallery fell silent. Diplomats from 24 species watched this human make an impossible claim. The Verith null field had never been detected by anyone. It was the foundation of galactic security, the guarantee that kept aggressive species in check. To suggest that a human could simply look into space and see through it was absurd. Ambassador Chen stood beside Marcus, her diplomatic instincts telling her to smooth this over, to laugh it off as a misunderstanding. But she looked at that patch of space again, and she felt it too. The wrongness. The too perfect darkness. "I trust Chief Stone's judgment," she said clearly. "Mark those coordinates officially. We'll see what happens." The minutes crawled by. Marcus stood with his arms crossed, staring at the empty space that wasn't empty. Other humans in the gallery began to notice what he was seeing. A junior diplomat whispered that yes, now that Marcus mentioned it, that area did look strange. A communications officer pulled up enhanced imaging on her tablet and frowned at the data that showed nothing but kept drawing her attention anyway. The aliens watched this with growing unease. Were the humans experiencing some kind of shared delusion? Was this a trick? Or was something genuinely impossible happening right before their eyes? At exactly the scheduled time, reality rippled. 3 Verith ships materialized in the precise coordinates Marcus had indicated. They shimmered into existence like ghosts becoming solid, their sleek hulls reflecting the light of the nebula. The large command ship hung in the center, flanked by 2 smaller escorts. Their angular design seemed to shift when you looked at them too long, as if they existed in more dimensions than the eye could process. The observation gallery erupted in chaos. Alien voices rose in a dozen languages, translators struggling to keep up with the sudden flood of shocked exclamations. The Solthari flashed brilliant red alarm. The Pren clicked their mandibles in distress. The Voss began hissing discussions in their sibilant tongue. Marcus didn't move. He kept staring at the ships, his face neutral. Ambassador Chen turned to him, her voice low. "How did you do that?" "I didn't do anything," Marcus replied. "I just looked. That's all. Just looked." On the command deck of the lead Varith ship, High Commander Thane stood frozen. His species had pale skin that seemed to absorb light, and his large eyes were adapted to see across multiple spectrums. Right now, those eyes were fixed on the display showing the observation gallery. Specifically, on the human security chief who had pointed directly at their position 5 minutes before they decloaked. "It's not possible," whispered his second officer. "The null field is perfect. It has been tested against every known form of detection. Every sensor, every technology, every psychic species in the galaxy. Nothing has ever penetrated it." "And yet," Thane said quietly, "a human with no equipment, no enhancement, no special training, looked into space and saw us." The implications crashed over him like a wave. If humans could see through the null field, then 12,000 years of Varith supremacy had just ended. Every secret operation, every hidden observation post, every invisible ship that maintained order through fear of the unseen, all of it was suddenly vulnerable. Back on the station, Ambassador Chen tried to restore some order to the chaos. "The ceremony would continue as planned," she announced. This was simply an interesting moment, nothing more. But her words felt hollow. Everyone in that gallery knew they had just witnessed something that would change the galaxy forever. As the crowd slowly settled and the formal ceremonies began, Marcus stepped back from the viewport. He pulled out his tablet and began writing a report. His hands were steady, his thoughts clear. He knew that within hours, every intelligence agency in the galaxy would want to know how he had done it. The truth was simple, though he suspected no one would believe it. Humans had survived on a planet where everything wanted to eat them. They had evolved to see threats that didn't want to be seen. To notice predators that specialized in camouflage. To trust their instincts over their instruments when those instincts said danger was near. The Varith had created a perfect technological solution to invisibility. But they had never tested it against a species whose ancestors spent millions of years being hunted by invisible things. As the ceremony proceeded below, Marcus looked out at the stars one more time. Now that he knew what to look for, he could see them everywhere. Small patches of wrongness scattered across the void. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. The Varith had been watching everything, recording everything, controlling everything from the shadows. Not anymore. The galaxy's silent watchers had just learned that humans were very good at watching back. And in the Varith command ship, as High Commander Thane watched the ceremony through cameras he thought were secret, he realized his species faced a problem they had never encountered before. How do you maintain order through fear of the invisible when someone can simply look at you and say, "There you are"? The answer, he knew, would reshape everything. The ceremony ended without incident, but nothing would ever be the same. The Pattern Hunters. The message from Assembly Station reached Earth Strategic Command 17 hours after Marcus Stone identified the Varith ships. By the time it arrived, enhanced footage had been analyzed by every major power in the galaxy. The conclusion was undeniable and terrifying. Humans could detect the null field. Not with technology, not with training, but with something far more unpredictable. Human intuition. Admiral Sarah Mitchell sat in her office at Strategic Command Headquarters in Geneva, watching the footage for the 5th time. She was a stern woman in her early 60s, with iron-gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded Earth's deep space fleet for 8 years, navigating the complex politics of a galaxy that still saw humanity as naive newcomers. Now everything had changed. The display showed Marcus Stone pointing at empty space, timestamp confirmed as 5 minutes before the Varith ships appeared. She watched alien diplomats react with confusion, then shock, then fear. That fear worried her more than anything else. When powerful people become afraid, they make dangerous decisions. Her second-in-command, General James Park, stood by the window overlooking the city. He was younger than Mitchell, barely 50, with the nervous energy of someone who had risen through the ranks too quickly. His tablet chirped constantly with incoming reports. "We're receiving formal requests from 18 different species," he said without turning. "They want human observers at their treaty negotiations, their military installations, their government buildings. The Kryn are demanding we sweep their entire home system for hidden Varith stations. The Solthari want us to train their security forces." Mitchell rubbed her temples. "We have 12,000 personnel in our entire diplomatic security division. They're asking us to police a galaxy with 400 billion stars." "I know," Park turned from the window. "But they're terrified, Admiral. The Varith have been invisible for 12 millennia. They've shaped galactic politics from the shadows. Now everyone's wondering what else the Varith have been hiding, what else they've been doing when no one could see them." "Show me the analysis," Mitchell ordered. Park brought up a new display. Xenopsychology has been working around the clock. They interviewed Marcus Stone for 6 hours, ran every test they could think of. The conclusion is that he wasn't using any special ability. He was just doing what humans do naturally. Pattern recognition. Mitchell leaned forward. "Explain." "Humans evolved as prey animals," Park said. "For millions of years, we were hunted by predators that used camouflage. Big cats hiding in tall grass, snakes that looked like branches, octopi that matched the ocean floor. Our brains developed an obsession with detecting things that don't want to be detected. We see patterns everywhere, even when they're not there. We get paranoid about shadows, we jump at sounds, we imagine threats constantly. It's called hypervigilance. But why doesn't it work for other species? They have predators too." "True, but most species evolved on different trajectories. The Varith themselves were apex predators. The Solthari evolved in gas clouds where visibility meant nothing. The Kryn developed in underground colonies. Each species has blind spots based on their evolutionary history. Humans have a blind spot for trusting what we see. We always assume something might be hiding." Mitchell watched the footage again, seeing Marcus's body language. The way he stood, alert but not tense. The way his eyes kept returning to that patch of space. He looked exactly like a soldier on patrol who'd spotted something wrong. "And the Varith null field," she said slowly, "it's too perfect." "Exactly," Park highlighted a section of technical analysis. "The null field works by convincing reality that nothing exists in a specific location. It smooths out quantum fluctuations, eliminates background radiation noise, creates absolute emptiness. But nature is never that perfect. Real empty space has tiny variations, random particles, cosmic background radiation. The null field creates a void that's mathematically flawless, and human brains notice that kind of perfection because in nature, perfection usually means something is wrong. It means a predator has scared away all the prey. It means the birds have stopped singing because something dangerous is near. So when humans look at space where a Varith ship is hiding," Mitchell said, "we don't see the ship. But we see that the emptiness is wrong. Our brains flag it as a threat without knowing why. We feel watched even though we can't see the watcher." Park nodded grimly. "And once we know to look for it, we can track them. Marcus Stone has been reviewing old footage from Assembly Station. He's identified 12 different Varith ships that were present during previous diplomatic events. Ships no one knew were there. All because he knows what the wrongness looks like." Mitchell stood and paced to the window. The implications crashed over her in waves. If humans could see the Varith, then every secret the Varith had kept for 12,000 years was suddenly vulnerable. Every hidden observation post, every covert operation, every manipulation of galactic politics from the shadows. And the Verith would do anything to protect those secrets. We need to move carefully, she said. The Verith have kept the peace for millennia. If we threaten their power too directly, they might decide that eliminating humanity is easier than adapting to being visible. We're already getting pressure from the other species, Park warned. They want us to help them find hidden Verith installations. If we refuse, they'll think we're collaborating with the Verith. If we help, the Verith will see it as an act of war. Then we walk the middle path, Mitchell decided. We help with verification, but we do it quietly. We train observers, but we emphasize this isn't about hunting the Verith. It's about restoring trust in the galactic system. She turned back to Park. And we need to understand this ability better. If humans can detect the null field, maybe we can detect other hidden technologies. Maybe we can see things no one else can see. That's the part that scares me, Park admitted. Because once the galaxy realizes humans have this ability, they won't just want our help. They'll want to study us, replicate us, maybe even weaponize us. We become valuable, Admiral. And valuable things in this galaxy have a way of being exploited. Then we make sure we're too valuable to exploit, Mitchell said firmly. We control the narrative. We show the galaxy that humans are reliable partners, not tools to be used. Her tablet chimed with an urgent message. She read it, and her expression darkened. The Verith have requested an emergency session of the Assembly. They're calling for a formal inquiry into human capabilities. Of course they are, Park muttered. What do you want to do? Mitchell thought for a moment, weighing options that could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. We send Marcus Stone. Really? He's a security chief, not a diplomat. Exactly. He's the man who saw them first. He's honest, straightforward, and he represents what humans actually are. Not what the Verith fear we might become. She pulled up his file on her display. Marcus Stone grew up hunting and tracking in the Canadian wilderness. He served in 3 combat zones. He has commendations for threat assessment and situational awareness. But more importantly, he's not a politician. He'll tell the truth, and right now, truth is our best weapon. Park considered this. The Verith are going to try to paint us as a threat. As a species that violates the natural order by penetrating their technology. How does one honest human counter that? By showing them we're not trying to penetrate anything, Mitchell replied. We're just looking at the sky and noticing things. That's not a weapon. That's just being aware. If the Verith have a problem with that, they need to ask themselves why they're so afraid of being seen. She sent a series of rapid commands through her tablet. I want a full briefing package prepared for Marcus. Historical context on the Verith, xenopsychology analysis, legal precedents. Everything he needs to represent humanity honestly. And get me Director Zhao from Intelligence. If we're going to testify at the Assembly, I want to know exactly what the Verith have been hiding all these years. Over the next 36 hours, Earth's intelligence community worked at a frantic pace. They reviewed decades of diplomatic footage, looking for the telltale signs of Verith observation. They analyzed economic data, searching for patterns that suggested invisible interference. They interviewed every human who had served in space, asking if they had ever felt watched when sensors showed nothing there. The results were damning. Marcus Stone wasn't the only one who had noticed the wrongness. Dozens of humans over the years had reported feeling observed during supposedly private meetings. Ship captains had mentioned feeling uneasy in certain regions of space where sensors showed nothing unusual. Soldiers had called in suspicious contacts that scanners couldn't confirm. Everyone had dismissed these reports as paranoia or stress, because no instruments supported what the humans claimed to feel. But now, with the knowledge that the Verith could be anywhere and invisible, all those reports took on new meaning. Director Zhao presented his findings to Admiral Mitchell in a secure briefing room deep beneath Strategic Command. He was a thin man with silver-rimmed glasses and the careful manner of someone who dealt in secrets. "The evidence is circumstantial," he said, "but the patterns are clear. The Verith have been present at every major galactic event for at least 2,000 years. Treaties that seemed to resolve peacefully had Verith ships in attendance. Wars that ended suddenly often had reports of human personnel feeling watched shortly before peace agreements were signed. Economic decisions that shaped entire sectors of the galaxy correlated with times when human traders reported unusual nervousness. They've been manipulating everything," Mitchell said quietly. "Not everything," Zhao corrected. "But enough. The Verith see themselves as galactic gardeners. They prune away conflicts before they grow too large. They guide civilizations toward stable paths. They eliminate threats that could destabilize the assembly. From their perspective, they're maintaining peace. From everyone else's perspective, we've all been living under invisible surveillance for 12,000 years. And now that surveillance is visible," Park added. "The question is what we do about it." "We tell the truth," Mitchell said firmly. "We go to the assembly, we present what we know, and we let the galaxy decide what happens next. The Verith have maintained peace, but they've done it by denying everyone else the right to make their own choices. That has to change." 3 days later, Marcus Stone stood in the assembly hall, facing representatives from 200 civilizations. The chamber was enormous, a sphere carved from a single asteroid and polished until the walls gleamed like mirrors. Seating areas circled upward in tiers, each species in their own environmental section. At the center of the chamber, suspended in the empty space, was a speaking platform where Marcus now stood. He felt very small and very human. High Commander Thane of the Verith spoke first. His voice came through translators as cold and precise as mathematics. "This inquiry will determine whether humanity represents a threat to galactic security. The ability to penetrate the null field violates the fundamental balance of power that has kept peace for 12 millennia. We demand answers. How did you develop this technology? What weapons have you created? What are your intentions?" Marcus took a breath and spoke with the calm certainty of a man telling simple truth. "We didn't develop anything. We didn't create any weapon. We just looked at the sky and saw something that didn't match the pattern. That's all." "That is impossible," Thane insisted. "The null field has been tested against every known form of detection. Sensors, scanners, psychic abilities, quantum analysis. Nothing can penetrate it." "Have you tested it against suspicion?" Marcus asked. A murmur ran through the chamber. Thane's large eyes narrowed slightly. "Explain." Marcus gestured to the display screens around the chamber, where footage of him on the observation deck played on repeat. "I grew up in a place where bears would watch you from the forest. You couldn't see them, but you could feel them. You'd get this itch between your shoulder blades, like eyes on your back. Most people ignored it because their instruments said nothing was there. But the people who survived were the ones who trusted that feeling." "The Verith are not bears," Thane said coldly. "No, but your null field creates the same kind of wrongness. Space is never perfectly empty. There's always background radiation, quantum fluctuations, tiny variations. Your technology smooths all that out. It creates silence where there should be noise. And humans are really, really good at noticing when things are too quiet." "This is absurd," interrupted a Pren delegate, its mandibles clicking aggressively. "You expect us to believe humans can detect our most advanced technology through primitive instinct?" "Respectfully," Marcus said, "I expect you to believe what actually happened. I pointed at empty space 5 minutes before those ships appeared. Dozens of witnesses saw it. The timestamp is confirmed. I'm not claiming any special power. I'm just telling you what every human who's spent time in the wilderness knows. Sometimes you can't see the predator, but you know it's there." The chamber erupted in discussion. Species who had never questioned the Verith suddenly remembered odd moments of unease during important meetings. Diplomats recalled feeling watched during supposedly private negotiations. The evidence had always been there, dismissed as paranoia because instruments showed nothing. But humans trusted their paranoia, and now everyone else was wondering if they should have trusted theirs too. Thane's voice cut through the noise. Even if we accept your explanation, this changes nothing. Your species now threatens the stability that has protected the galaxy for millennia. How do we trust that you won't abuse this ability? How do we know you won't hunt us, surveil us, turn our own methods against us? Marcus met the Verith commander's gaze steadily. You don't. Just like we don't know what you've been doing with 12,000 years of invisibility. But here's the thing about humans. We don't like being watched without knowing it. We don't like secret judges deciding our fate from shadows. We prefer things out in the open, even when it's messy. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs right now. Not less surveillance, but more honesty. The chamber fell silent. In that moment, every species realized they faced a choice. They could try to suppress human abilities, maybe even eliminate humanity to preserve the old order. Or they could accept that the galaxy had fundamentally changed, and 12,000 years of invisible control had come to an end. High Commander Thane stood motionless, his ancient eyes studying this human who had accidentally shattered an empire that was already broken. And Marcus Stone, who had simply looked at the sky and trusted what his instincts told him, waited to see what the galaxy would choose. The old order had fallen, and humanity had barely even pushed.